Awesome. So, hi everyone. I'm Sarah. I'm part of the marketing team at Patients Like Me. And before we get started, I just wanted to ask if anyone does have any questions, which I'm sure they'll pop up, just to leave them to the end. We'll have about 10 minutes for questions at the end. And also, please be sure to mute yourself just so that there aren't any distractions during Ivy's workshop. So thank you for being here for Burnout Proof Your Life. I'm excited to introduce Ivy Watts. She's a former All-American athlete, mental health advocate, and speaker. And after silently struggling with anxiety and depression, Ivy turned her journey into a mission to help others. And she's now inspired over 100,000 people to prioritize self-care and mental wellness. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ivy.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thanks so much, Sarah. And I am so excited to be here tonight with you all and having this really important conversation around mental wellness and self-care and self-love because there's so much that you're going through on a day-to-day basis. You might have just been going through a really tough health issue, or you might have lost a loved one, or you're having a hard time juggling all the demands of work and home life and potentially being a parent or a caregiver. Maybe you just got a flat tire and that was like the worst thing that could have happened on that day after a series of unfortunate events. Whatever it is that was going on and whatever you're bringing into the space, I want you to know that it's okay, that it is okay to not be okay. That's something you're going to hear me say throughout our time together because it's something that I wish I had heard when I was struggling with my mental health in silence. But I also want you to just take space and give yourself a pat on the back because you could be doing anything in the world right now, but you chose to be here right now to do something for you and your mental health, to start to figure out how you could have sustainable tools for burnout prevention and to have wellness and self-love and self-care in your life long term. Because so many of us are just stuck on this hamster wheel where we're constantly chasing this deadline and meeting this expectation and trying to finish this task. And it's overwhelming and exhausting. And we feel like if we just keep running faster and faster, that eventually we'll be able to take a break. Well, in reality, many of us don't give ourselves permission to even take that break. And in reality, many of us are just kind of barely getting by. And so it's so important to recognize that you did something powerful for yourself by coming here tonight and doing something for your mental health and your self-care, and to know it's okay to not be okay. And that we're going to learn some tools tonight to help you to take a step off of that hamster wheel. Before we get into all that we're going to be talking about tonight, I want to let you know that the space that we're in tonight is a safe space. So I want you to feel empowered to engage with me, interact with me, ask questions at the end. But I also want to say that sometimes these conversations might get a little bit uncomfortable. We're trying to make them more comfortable, but if it ever becomes too much for you or too triggering for you, maybe take a moment and walk away from your computer, put your head down, whatever you need to do to feel even just a little bit better. We're going to have a Planet Fitness judgment-free zone in this space together. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. The first thing that we're going to do is really focusing on recognizing. Recognizing where we are at and how we are feeling is the foundation for us to begin healing and moving through the stressors that we're experiencing. Too often, we push our feelings off as insignificant and say that they don't matter. So when we do that, that only leads our mental health struggles to get worse and worse. So it's so important to be able to check in with ourselves, see what's bothering us. That's what's going to allow us to have that long-term healing, to know what we need to be able to do to feel better. So this is what we're really going to start off with today to lay the foundation for the rest of our conversation. And so, as I said, this is a safe space. I'm going to invite you into the chat box. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Again, safe space. I'm going to ask you to go into the chat box and put an exclamation point if you've ever said to yourself, I don't have time to take care of myself. Go ahead and put an exclamation point in the chat box if you ever said, I don't have time to take care of myself. Yeah, a lot of people resonate with that. Now I'm going to ask you to go into the chat box and put a hashtag sign if you ever said to yourself, I need to just push through this. somebody else has it worse. I need to just suck it up, right? How many people have just kind of pushed past their feelings? Yeah, a lot of people. And then I want you to go in the chat box and put a dollar sign. If you've ever just said to yourself, well, I don't really feel worthy of taking care of myself, or I don't deserve to take care of myself. Yeah, a lot of us feel that way as well. So I ask you these questions not to make you feel bad. I ask you these questions because I want you to know that you're not alone. These feelings are often universal feelings that we all have. We don't have time, or someone else has it worse. So just suck it up and move past it. And that's often also associated with the stigma around mental health challenges, right? So we choose often to struggle in silence. But I just want you to know that there is a different way, that the thoughts that you've had before in the past are important for us to be able to acknowledge, but they don't define you. And you can start to create a new path for you as you move forward in life. One of the best tools you can use with recognizing is asking yourself, how are you doing honestly? Because again, we go through our day and we just say we're good or fine or okay, even if it's been the worst day or week of our lives. So I really want you to get honest with yourself and ask yourself, how am I doing in this moment? When you can say to yourself, I'm not okay, and know that that's okay, then it allows you to reflect and say, okay, what do I need to do to feel even just a little bit better? Who can I reach out to? Who's in my network that I can reach out to help me move through this problem? I'm not alone in what I'm going through, right? There's so many resources that exist that we'll talk about, even with patients like me, right? Knowing you have a community around you. But it starts with the foundation of being able to say, how am I doing right now? As I reflect about where I'm at today, I'm probably at like 35, 40%. May is really hard for me in general. My mom passed away in May 4 years ago. And so that is really challenging for me in May with Mother's Day and her passing anniversary. And so I'm kind of moving through those motions while also dealing with grief and sadness. But it allows me to just take space to reflect on what I need. And it allowed me to take space to say, okay, I'm coming on to talk to all of you about self-care. Let me take some time for myself. And before the call, I was at an even lower percentage. So taking some space to do a breath work meditation helped me to feel more centered. When we don't check in with ourselves, we don't give ourselves space to know what we need. I'm going to invite you back into the chat box, and I want you to now take space and ask yourself honestly, how am I feeling in this moment? To know that the goal isn't to always be at 100%. It's okay to be wherever you're at. Is anyone willing to share how you are today from 0 to 100% in the chat box? Knowing it's okay to be wherever you're at. I see 85%. Thank you so much for sharing. I see a couple 30s in the chat box. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so just take this as a tool that you can check in with yourself and just say, how am I doing? And what do I need to feel even just a little bit better? I wish I had done this self-reflection because I struggled with my mental health for most of my life in silence because I was terrified of being labeled as anything other than perfect. I grew up with a perfectionist mindset. So I said if I wasn't the best, I would be a failure. And I was a track athlete for most of my life, from when I was 8 through the end of college. And the pressures and expectations of being a track athlete, on top of the anxiety and negative self talk, low self esteem, and lack of confidence that I was struggling with in silence, that pressure became too much for me. And I felt like I was spiraling out of control because I didn't have the language or the words or the knowledge to know that I could talk about my mental health. Because I believed when society told me that if I talked about what I was going through, I would be labeled as weak. And I couldn't let the world see me as that because I needed the world to see me as perfect. So this struggle in silence continued. And I attached my self-worth to running a particular time on the track in the 400-meter dash, which was my main event. And I poured my self-worth into that time. And because of that, I often felt worthless when I didn't reach that time. And it was this negative and vicious cycle of negative self-talk before a track meet and the anxiety that kept me from running that time, that only fueled the negativity, the feeling like a failure, that fueled more fear and anxiety and negative self-talk for the next meet. And I didn't know how to break that cycle. And I felt so alone in this cycle. And when I graduated, nobody recognized that I've been struggling with my mental health because all they saw was that I was this perfect person. They saw that I was graduating from college with a near perfect GPA, that I was about to be named a top 30 finalist for the NCAA Woman of the Year award, and all of these other accomplishments. But to me, they didn't really mean much because I felt like I was leaving college as a failure because I hadn't done that one goal. I hadn't reached that one goal that I poured my self-worth into. I hated myself. I felt like a failure. And I was losing my identity as a track athlete. And so I didn't know who I was anymore and started spiraling into a depression and struggling with thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore. And it wasn't until a couple of years after college that I was finally able to get the help that I wish I had gotten when I was a young girl. And that was because I had a former teammate open up to me about her struggle with her mental health. This is the first time I ever had a real conversation about mental health and the walls of stigma that I grew up believing, especially growing up in a Black family where we never talked about mental health. That stigma began to break down and finally pushed me into the doors of therapy, which truly changed and saved my life, which allowed me to see for the first time that society has it all wrong, that talking about what you're going through is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength because you've recognized that you want and deserve more for yourself and you can't do that alone. And that is more than okay. But sometimes we think about therapy or talking to a colleague or a friend or a family member as a sign of weakness. Because again, that's what we've been conditioned to think. But I want us to change that dynamic right here in this space together. So we're going to do a little bit of a silly activity. If you're able to unmute, you can certainly do that. And I'd love for you to do that. If you can't, I understand. And I just want to see you go into the chat box and say this. So what we're going to do on the count of three, we're all going to say, "Woof," out loud together. I know sometimes when I say that through my microphone, it doesn't come out for whatever reason. So I typed it into the chat box of what I want you to say out loud, like a loud howling jog. And you're like, what in the world is this girl talking about? But I promise there is a purpose in this activity. So if you can come off of mute, that would be wonderful. I'd love to hear you. But if not, I want to see you type it into the chat box. Okay. And then you can maybe say it to yourself. All right. So ready? One, two, three. Let me hear some folks.
Wahoo!
Amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Now I'd love for you to kindly put yourself back on mute if you're able, and then go into the chat box and tell me what is the one thing you use to make that beautiful, beautiful sound. What did you use to make that sound? What did you use to make that sound? Your voice. Yes, Sarah, your voice. You all have this incredible and powerful tool within you. That is your voice. You can use your voice to unpack the pain and the stress and the years of expectations and pressures, anxiety that you felt like you had to struggle with in silence, feeling like you had to be perfect all of the time, identity challenges, maybe identity challenges as an employee or as a parent or caregiver, and maybe not really knowing who you are. You can use your voice to unpack relationship issues, financial issues, traumas that you've gone through. You can use your voice to work through all of those challenges. And that is self care. That is healing. And each and every single one of you is so incredibly worthy of recognizing the power of your voice, that you are not stuck in this moment, that you can use your voice to allow you to keep putting that one foot in front of the other. You are stronger than you think. You have gotten through 100% of your most difficult days. And you can use your voice so you don't have to keep struggling in silence as you move through those days. So I was so incredibly grateful that I found my voice and started working through a lot of those challenges of anxiety and depression. And I started learning a lot of tools for self care and self love. But even though I got to this really great space, I won't lie and say that mental health recovery isn't a process, because it is. I still struggle with my mental health. I struggle right here, right now. As I mentioned, May is an incredibly difficult month for me as I navigate grief of losing my mom 4 years ago. I am a single mom, and that was an unexpected path for me. I'm mothering without my mom. So there's all these momentous life changes that have happened for me. And I struggle with my mental health still with lack of confidence and low self-esteem and anxiety and depression from time to time. But I want all of us to recognize that it's not about reaching a destination of happiness. It's about learning to give yourself the same love and grace that you would so easily give to somebody else if they were struggling with something similar. Recognizing that it is okay to struggle. It doesn't make you a failure, it makes you human. And when you can give yourself that grace, when you can give yourself that kindness, it's going to make this journey so much easier for you. So, as I share my story, you might see yourself in parts of my story, be it the perfectionism, the maybe desire to fit in with others, being really hard on yourself, anxiety, depression, whatever it might be. Whatever you're going through, it matters. Your voice matters, your story matters, and your struggle matters. But you don't have to stay here and be stuck in this pain. And so now I really want to transition into how we release the limiting beliefs, how we release what is holding us back from being the best version of ourselves that we want to be, knowing that we deserve compassion and patience and kindness and love from ourselves, not just from others, but from ourselves. And so before I share with you all some tools for self-care, I'd love for you to go in the chat box and share with me what are some of the tools that you use when you feel overwhelmed, stressed, when you feel like you're teetering on the edge of burnout? What do you do when you just feel always so exhausted? What do you do to kind of help you through? What are some of your self-care tools? What are some of your self-care tools that help you through? I see journaling. Yes, journaling is a really healthy way of using your voice, right? Maybe you're not yet ready to talk to somebody you know. Journaling is a great way to release and just get those heavy feelings off your chest. Can really allow you to make connections about things that are bothering you that you might not have made otherwise if you kept it all up in your head. Taking a walk, getting outside, moving your body is so huge. That movement allows stress to be let out in a really healthy way. I see a lot of meditative practices. That's really great as well. Healing practices as well to really allow you to be more centered and calm. Going to your support group meeting, right? So surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, who make you feel good, who make you feel seen and heard and safe. That's also so incredible. I love that. And Pilates, yeah, that mind body or yoga as well. Mind body connection and that movement is so huge. I love that you already all have some really great tools for self care. And I want to add to your toolkit tonight. So many of us in the beginning said that we don't have time to take care of ourselves, or at least we've said that to ourselves before. And that was likely a limiting belief that kept you from struggling. So let's go back to the beginning. If you never check in with yourself and you're also telling yourself that you don't have time, then you're not going to take care of yourself. And that's when you start to spiral on that hamster wheel. You're running faster and faster, and you're never taking that break. And that's where burnout happens. So it's about checking in, and then how can we reframe our minds to say that we actually do have time? And the one way I want you to start thinking about that is to find the moments in the time that you already have. So the next time you're brushing your teeth, so maybe later on tonight when you're brushing your teeth, instead of mindlessly scrolling on your phone with your other hand, look in the mirror and think some positive affirmations to yourself. Or think about all of the things that you did today that maybe were impossible even just a couple of days ago. Maybe you ate lunch today and that's been really hard for you recently because you're struggling. Or maybe you took a shower and that's been hard for you. Maybe you got a huge promotion, right? So it could be all different things that you've maybe have accomplished, but just allowing yourself to just be in that moment and celebrate yourself. Your next shower, instead of thinking about all the things you have to do that day, just allow yourself to feel the water on your body. When you walk to the bathroom or if you're walking to a meeting, right? Instead of thinking about all the things you have to do or checking your phone, just focus on your feet planted on the ground. If you're outside, focus on the air coming onto your body. These are ways that we can be mindful, right? And use the time that we already have. Another thing you can do is just taking space in a really stressful situation to just stretch out your arms. And I encourage you to do this with me, right? Or move your head from side to side, right? That's a release. I already feel that release for me right now in the tension that I carry in my neck and shoulders. So you find moments in the time that you already have. It's a really great way to rewire your brain to see that you do have time. And it's really great for you to be in the here and now and see that we can't change the past or control the future. We can be here, and that can create clarity and calm in your life. Another really great tool to find mindful moments is a tool called emotional freedom technique tapping. If you've never heard of this tool before, then you're in for a treat. And if you have heard of it, I hope that you get some extra benefit from it tonight. Emotional freedom technique tapping, or EFT tapping, is a way of tapping on 10 different energy points or meridian points in your body. When you tap on those energy points, it sends positive messages to your brain that help to reduce stress by about 40%. So if you're feeling really stressed and overwhelmed and stuck, it's a really great tool that uses your hands and your body to help you to feel even just a little bit less stuck. So how does it work? The biggest thing you want to do is identify what's bothering you, like we talked about so much today. So if you're stressed out about all the demands on your plate, you have a loved one that's dealing with a health issue, maybe struggling with identity issues, whatever it is, identify what's bothering you. Or you're just generally anxious about your future. Figure out what's bothering you. And then identify how much is bothering you from 0 to 10, with 10 being the most intense. The reason why we want to do this is because self-care isn't going to always fix your problem. If you go and take a walk or journal or listen to music, right, that big meeting or big appointment still going to be there. But what self care does do is it gives you the grace and the space to feel even just a little bit better. And maybe it takes you from a 10 of the most anxious down to an 8. And because you've gone down to an 8, now you can be a little bit more effective and show up more of your best self because you've taken the space for yourself. And that's exactly what I did before this call tonight. Then you want to take your issue and couple it with an affirmation. So, for example, you might say, even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. So, you recognize that what you're going through matters because you matter and your struggle matters. But you also recognize that you are worthy of love and acceptance from others and from yourself. And so tonight, I want to actively give you this tool because I want you to leave here with a hands on tool that you can take with you anywhere, anytime to literally begin to rewire your brain and start to be more kind and caring and compassionate towards yourself to help you through the struggles that you might be having. So tonight, we're going to actively do this together. And the way that it's going to work is I will say the affirmation and you're just going to focus on the tapping. The affirmation tonight might not 100% apply to you at the bottom of my screen, and that's okay. You'll still get a lot of healing benefit from it. And then in the future, you can take it and make it your own. You can change overwhelmed to anxious to sad, and then you can change the what you're struggling with to whatever's bothering you. So as we go through tonight, I'm going to have my eyes closed. I'm going to invite you to do the same, but you can do whatever feels the most comfortable for you. And I'm also going to ask that you find one of the 10 energy points that stands out as being the most healing or calming, and I'll explain why afterwards. So the way that this is going to work is you're going to take the hand that you typically write with. So righties, you're going to use your right hand for all the tapping. Lefties, you'll use your left hand for all the tapping. This first one is actually you need both hands for. So I'm going to see everyone's jazz hands up in the air. I'm going to envision they're up there, right? And what I'm going to have you do for this first one, the karate chop, you're going to take the hand that you typically write with on the outside of your opposite hand. I'm going to go ahead and close my eyes. I'm going to invite you to have this mindful moment with me. And if you're able, you can plant both feet on the ground. I will say the affirmation and just take note of how you feel and which affirmation and which energy point stands out as being the most healing and calming for you. Even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. Great. Now you're going to take your hand in between your eyebrow. Even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. Next is outside of your eyebrow. Even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. Next is underneath your eye. Even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. The next is my personal favorite, but again, just take note of which one feels calming or healing for you. Underneath your nose. Even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. Next is your chin. Even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. Next is your opposite collarbone. Even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. Next is going to be underneath your arm. Even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. Next, you're going to take your hand on top of your head. Even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. And finally, you're going to take the tips of your fingers and tap them together. Even though I'm overwhelmed about all that I have to do, I still deeply love and accept myself. Wonderful. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes if you chose to close them. And just take a moment and lock in that healing energy that you just created in your body, because you just did something so powerful for your mental health by taking the space to tap on those energy points to reduce stress by about 40%. And as we went through, I had said to find one of the 10 energy points that stands out to you as being the most healing or calming. I'd love for you to go in the chat box and tell me what energy point stood out for you and how you're feeling now. Really take assessment based on how you felt when you came into the Zoom call and then how you're feeling now. You can put a percentage number to it. You can just use words to describe it. Just take some space and say, what was the energy point that stood out for me and how am I feeling right now? Anybody have anything that came from that activity? They're awesome. Between eyebrows, under the eyes. All right, I see them coming in. So the reason why I ask you to find you feel a little bit more grounded. I love that. So the reason why I ask you to find your one space is you might forget the entire sequence. You might not have time, right? You might be about to give like a big presentation or have a tough conversation or go into a challenging appointment. A doctor walks in, right? And like you don't have time to go through the entire sequence. So even just taking that space to tap on that one energy point still sends those positive messages to your brain, still reduces stress and anxiety. So you can take that one space with you wherever it was. You can do the entire sequence. You don't even have to do the affirmation, right? The act of tapping is a really beautiful tool. So taking that space with you can be really calming and healing. Oh, I love how you felt some relief from your back pain. Yes, it's so amazing how connected our minds and our bodies are, right? When we allow space for our minds to just turn off and allow ourselves to relax, how much more in the body we get, and that pain can be released, right? It's such a great way to release not only our mental stress, but our bodily stress as well. So I love that you felt that relief. So take this tool with you. I love it because it's a great way to use your hands and your body anytime, anywhere to literally rewire your brain and help you with that stress. And as we find these sustainable tools that we can implement every day, every other day, the mindful tools, those mindful moments, when you take space for that, sustainably, that is what helps to prevent burnout because you're teaching your brain to know that you deserve to take care of yourself. And you're not pushing through your feelings all of the time. You're pausing. You're taking that 1 second to check in with yourself. And then you're saying, what do I need? Is it EFT tapping? Is it taking a walk? Is it calling a friend? So allowing yourself to check in and then giving yourself what you need helps to prevent that burnout because you're not just constantly running on that hamster wheel. And yes, this will be sent out as a recording later. Awesome. So now we're talking all about burnout, right? Burnout's when you're exhausted, you're disconnected, you no longer love the things you used to do, right? There's burnout and there's depression, and they kind of toil on the same lines, except for depression is a longer term struggle that you're having. But when you're burnt out, you are withdrawn, right? You just don't want to do the same things you used to do. And if you are feeling burnt out, whether that's from work or from family life or whatever it is, right? It is okay, right? It is okay to struggle, but you don't have to stay there. But also, I want you to know that burnout can be prevented, right? As we just talked about. And so I have a 3 ingredient burnout recipe that I want to share with you all. So, the first part of the burnout recipe is 1 cup of boundary setting. Okay. So, boundaries are hard to set, especially for the fellow people pleasers in the room, right? I like to say I'm a recovering people pleaser, but it's hard. It's hard to say no to people. So, start setting boundaries with yourself. Okay. So, setting boundaries with yourself means taking a dedicated lunch break. So instead of working through your lunch or doing all these other tasks during your lunch, actually sit and eat your food. Another way to find a mindful moment and take a break so you're more effective when you come back to whatever you're doing afterwards. Leaving work on time, right? Leaving work on time maybe 3 out of 5 days a week. Setting that boundary with yourself to just know, or even setting time on your calendar that you're going to work out at a certain time. You're going to take a walk, that you're going to take a breath, that you're going to stand up and stretch. When you can set those boundaries with yourself, your brain remembers over time that it is safe to say no to things that don't feel good for you. And it is safe to say yes to things that do feel good for you. So, setting those boundaries with yourself is a really big starting point. The next piece of this burnout prevention recipe is a pound of self care. We've already talked a lot about different self care tools, but making sure that you're taking care of yourself, right? Giving yourself the space and time to consistently pour into yourself, even if that's just a couple of seconds that day when you're brushing your teeth and saying some affirmations. That makes a difference, right? Which we're going to talk about the power of affirmations, but finding the space to pour into yourself like you did tonight, right? You already have the pound of self care because you have the desire to take care of yourself and you want more for yourself, right? And so being proud of yourself tonight for that. And then a heaping amount of self compassion. This is one of the biggest parts of burnout prevention and in life in general, because we're not going to be perfect. That's not the goal. We're going to make mistakes. We're not always going to be good at practicing self care. We're not always going to be good at setting boundaries. So we have to give ourselves permission to have that compassion for ourselves, whether that's when we take a step back or if you call it a failure, however you consider that, right? It's about giving yourself compassion, knowing that maybe you didn't do your best and that's okay, right? But it's about how are you moving forward? What are you saying to yourself? Giving yourself that grace, reminding yourself that you are human, that you did the best that you could with the tools that you had. And now you have new tools. You're constantly learning and growing. But when we're hard on ourselves, when we're so frustrated with ourselves for messing up, that's when that burnout really can start to sneak up on us because we're not even giving ourselves grace for the times that we did mess up. So having that compassion for yourself when you make a mistake or when you don't aren't doing as well at taking care of yourself is going to be really important to allow you to keep moving forward and not stay stuck on that hamster wheel. But knowing that it is possible to prevent burnout and that even when you try to prevent burnout, you might get burnt out, right? It's not a linear process. And I know that can feel frustrating or disappointing to some, but life throws curveballs and things happen that take us off of our plan. But it's about What are you saying to yourself and reminding yourself that you are resilient and that you can come back to your self care tools that you've built up in that foundation that we've been talking about? When you know your self care tools, you can always come back to them, even if you strayed away from them from some time. So it's not always going to look perfect. Perfect. That's not the goal. It's not going to be linear, but giving yourself that grace so that you can get back on track, whatever that looks like for you. Another really great self-care tool is the power. Oh, did that not come up? I'm sorry. I thought I pressed the I thought I pressed the button and it didn't come up. I'm sorry. That was supposed to say heaping amount of compassion. And then, like I said, making those mistakes and giving yourself grace over and over. And just starting that recipe over and over and over again. And that's okay. So, another really great way to take care of yourself is through the power of your voice, like we talked about, right? The power of your voice to unpack everything that's holding you down. So, I want to let you know about some resources that are a lot of different resources that exist for you 24/7 that you might have known about or might have heard about for the first time today, but just knowing that you can use them. And it's a really great way to start feeling empowered to use your voice. Patients Like Me has a lot of really great resources as well to get connected with others and check in with yourself as well. But these are some great resources I want to share with you today. So, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline and the Crisis Text Line are two resources you can text at any time or call at any time and know there's a trained individual on the other side to help you through that struggle that you're having. These are really great resources if you're struggling and you're in a crisis or maybe struggling with suicidal ideation, but also if you're just having a hard time. Again, what you're going through matters no matter how big or small it seems to you or to somebody else. We have to start giving ourselves permission to be seen, right? When we allow ourselves to be seen and to talk about what we're going through, it makes the healing journey easier. And we don't feel so stuck for so long. So these resources are a really great space to start using your voice and see the power of just getting things off your chest that feel really heavy. The Trevor Project is great for those who identify with the LGBTQ plus community. Another great way to feel less alone. They have 24/7 texting and phone lines, and they also have resources for you to connect with others so you can feel less alone in that journey that you're experiencing. Growing up in a Black family, we never talked about mental health. It was a huge reason why I believed the stigma and why I struggled in silence for so long. So these resources are really great to break that heightened stigma and for you to find a therapist of color in your area if that's been a barrier for you in finding help. So, Therapy for Black Men, Latinx Therapy, the Asian Mental Health Collective, and Therapy for Black Girls are all really great resources to connect with others. There's podcasts and forums, and again, to find therapists of color in your area. And if you're thinking on this call, I really need to talk to somebody, I really need to find that help, I need a therapist, a really great space to start is Psychology Today. This is where I actually found my first therapist. Psychology Today is a really great resource. So you can filter on insurance, different types of therapy, what you're looking for, different demographic information. Really great resource to start your healing journey with a therapist. But just knowing the power of your voice and that it is the strongest thing you can do, not the weakest by any means, to start talking about what you're struggling with. And even if your brain likes to tell you that you're alone or that no one will understand, that's just your brain playing tricks on you. My brain loves to tell me that too, but it's the furthest thing from the truth. There's always someone who wants to help you. There's always someone who wants to walk alongside you and help you on your journey. So, knowing that you have your voice and it's so incredibly powerful to start making those changes in yourself that you want to become the confident, resilient, brave, bold person that you want to be in life. Those tools are already within you. You have the tools and strength and resiliency already within you. Sometimes we just need some support to help us to bring those out a little bit more and to feel more grounded and secure in ourselves. Amazing. So now this brings me to my favorite part of our time together, which is to rise. So we have recognized our struggles, we've recognized where we're at tonight, some of our limiting beliefs. We have released some of those through different activities like EFT tapping, the power of our voice, mindful moments, and all the other self care tools you've mentioned. And then now we're going to rise into the most confident, resilient versions of ourselves. And that is through the power of self compassion, self love, and positivity. because we act consistent with who we think we are. When we say to ourselves, I can't do this, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, your brain hears that. Your body hears that. You're going to carry yourself in a more negative light. If you remember from my story, I was talking so negatively to myself, right? And it kept me not only from reaching my goals, but it made me hate myself, feel like a failure, and then amplify my struggles from anxiety to depression to struggling with suicidal ideation. I didn't have the tools to stop that cycle, and the negativity just kept on building. And that's all I believed about myself was all of those negative things. So you have an opportunity, no matter how negative you've been with yourself in your life, to start today to lay a foundation of self love and self compassion to help you through the struggles that you'll face in the future, right? Challenges are inevitable. We all have limitations, but it's our mindset about those limitations that's either going to hold us back and keep us stuck on that hamster wheel or allow us to be set free, take steps off of that hamster wheel, know that we are worthy of feeling better, that we are worthy of taking care of ourselves, that we are worthy of seeing the hope and light that is on the other side of the suffering that we're going through right now. So we all have limitations, but we are not stuck in those limitations. And the power of positivity isn't about being positive all of the time. But the power of positivity does make a huge impact on the way you view yourself. Because when you're positive with yourself, it allows your brain and your body to hear it, over time, believe it, and then you carry yourself in a more positive way. You act more positively, you believe in yourself, and you attract more positive people and opportunities to you. Self-love and positivity have been monumental for me through my recent life changes of becoming a single mom and divorce and motherhood and mothering without my mom and all the other day-to-day challenges, right? It gives me that grace. It gives me that compassion. I wish I had self-love back then when I was struggling so deeply in silence. And I want that gift for all of you tonight and moving forward the rest of your life. It's about really recognizing that the power of self love is allowing yourself to sit in those uncomfortable feelings. So maybe you feel some regret or sadness or anger right now. Sit in that. Sit in that feeling. I know that that might feel really uncomfortable. Sit in that feeling and say to yourself, today was not my best day. And I'm really just mad at myself. But true strength is knowing that I am worthy of trying again and again. I am worthy of putting that one foot in front of the other. I am worthy of seeing my tomorrow and being able to try again. And that is what the difference is about. It's that mindset shift that has such a huge impact on the way you view yourself and carry yourself and the way you navigate challenges. So, in a world that we're often comparing ourselves on social media and to colleagues and friends and partners and feeling like we're not good enough, I want this to be your permission to know that you are more than good enough. That you can start today to believe in yourself and love yourself for the strong, beautiful, capable, worthy, talented, intelligent, wonderful person that you are, just by being who you are in this moment with all of the great things that you bring to the world, just by being who you are. And so, what I want us to do is to say some positive affirmations out loud together. So, if you remember a little bit ago, we all said "what" out loud. I want us to do that again, like with the same energy, but with these affirmations. And so, what I want us to do, if you can come off of mute again, that would be fantabulous. But if not, I want to see you in the chat box. No matter what, I want you to say these out loud. Like, even if you're in the chat box and you're in a crowded space and you can't get loud, I want you to still say it out loud because your brain, your body is going to hear these affirmations. And the change does not happen overnight. You might be thinking that, right? You're like, Ivy, this isn't going to make a difference. But with consistency and practice, every time you're brushing your teeth, every time you're driving to work, every time you're sitting in bed before you're going to sleep, these affirmations, that consistency, writing them down when you're journaling, your brain over time begins to believe them. And it makes an impact in the way that you show up for yourself through the day. It makes a difference in the way that you navigate challenges and grief and overwhelm and sadness and anxiety. So I want us to all begin to lay that foundation starting today. So if you're able to come off of mute, what we're going to do is I'm going to say the first affirmation, you're going to repeat. I'm going to say the second affirmation, you're going to repeat, and we're going to do that for all three. Okay, so the first one is I am worthy. Let me see if I can hear some people.
I am worthy.
Amazing. I am capable.
I am capable.
And this last one is I am good enough.
I am good enough.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I would love if someone else could also come off of mute. I know that you all maybe aren't necessarily in the space to come off of mute, but I want you to really begin to say these affirmations and begin to believe it. Even if this feels silly or strange, I want you to start feeling the impact and the power that these affirmations can have on you. Remembering that what you say after I am is what you become. So if we can do a take two, if others can also come off of mute, or if you can go in the chat box and do capital letters and exclamation points to really start feeling the magnitude, the power of these affirmations, knowing that they're making a difference even just right now in this moment. So I'm going to get louder than that. I want to hear some people. I want to see capital letters and exclamation points in the chat box, okay? So the first one is I am worthy.
I am worthy.
Amazing. Thank you, Chris and Sarah. I appreciate it. I am capable.
I am capable.
Oh, amazing. And this last one, knowing that who you are has always been and will always be more than good enough. I am good enough.
I am good enough.
Amazing, amazing. Taking the power of positivity with you. And just if you're able to tonight, taking both of your arms, wrapping them around yourself. We did some tough work tonight, but I'm so proud of you for showing up. Just close your eyes and plant your feet on the ground and just say to yourself, I'm going to be okay. I am loved. I am stronger than I think. And just giving yourself a little bit of round of applause for showing up tonight. I appreciate you so much for taking the space to do something for your mental health. We're going to transition now into if you have any questions, but if you are able to scan this QR code, I'd love to hear your feedback from tonight. It takes 60 seconds. It really helps me to improve. So if you want to share anything good, bad, constructive, I'd love to hear that. So please feel free to scan that QR code. And then in a second, I'm going to go to my next slide that has my contact information and some additional resources, which I'll share with you. So I'm going to switch. This QR code has my contact information, my website, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. My book, You Are Worth Fighting For, which is based off 11 life lessons that my mom left me with. And each one I put my own spin on to help you define self-love and mental wellness. So if you are interested in that, builds off of a lot of things we talked about today. Feel free to check that out. I just put the ebook on my website so you can get that if that feels like a good option for you. And then there's tons of other resources as well on that link. So any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. And if anytime you want to send a private message just to me so that nobody sees your name, totally fine to do that. I'm happy to do an anonymous question that way. Thanks, Jennifer. I admire you as well. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here tonight. Thanks, Caroline. Yeah, any questions, go ahead in the chat box. I'd love to answer them. Any content tonight, anything you're struggling with, anything about me. Looks like we have someone joining a little late. Is there a ideal amount of time to do the tapping exercise? That's a really great question. So I know we went through it kind of relatively quickly tonight. So there is, I would say the ideal amount of time, if you're going to just do one space, is about 30 seconds minimum if you can. But sometimes, to be honest, like I'm about to get out on a stage and do a talk like this, and I'm feeling super anxious, I'll just tap for a couple seconds, like just a couple seconds. And even that just regulates me a little bit. But if you're going to go through the entire sequence, I would recommend to do it at least 2 times, but 3 would be the most ideal. So you'd go through 2 times. So from the karate chop all the way to the fingertips. So you'd go through the entire sequence. um, So yeah, I would say 30 seconds just for one area and then up to 3 times for the entire sequence. But don't judge yourself, right? Like if you can only do it one time, that's okay, right? That's better than doing it none at all. So if you can get to 3, if you can get to 2, wonderful. But I understand life happens. Yeah, of course. Of course, appreciate you, Sam. I appreciate your guidance and you as a human. So
Ivy, are
some
those that tapping side, is that in this QR code?
It is not. It's actually in the Rising with Resilience guide if folks want to check that out. But I'm happy to
Okay,
send
great.
over the slides, Sarah. And then also it's, in the recording, but it's
True,
in the
yeah.
Rising with Resilience guide.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah, good
Thank you.
question. Some people say there are specific breathing techniques that work better than others. Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to personal preference. I think that's a big thing too to remember is that we're all so different. I call it finding your self-care jam. So, like you might love to take walks in nature and like someone else like that's the worst thing for them. Like that makes them feel really icky. Um, so I think finding what works for you. If you find a breath work pattern or a meditative practice that's really great for you, stick with it. And if you try something else and you're like, oh, I don't really like that. Like last night, I did a breath work pattern before bed because it helps to relax me to sleep. And the woman was saying to keep your eyes open. And like for me, like I got it because it was like wanted to keep yourself centered while you're like walking through life and your eyes are open. But it was really hard for me and I just didn't like it. So I might do it again, but I won't force myself to. So I think it's just about finding what breath work pattern works the best for you. There's so many different ways to breathe, and that's the cool thing about your breath is that you have it with you all the time, so you can play with it, experiment, and find out what works for you. How often do you meditate per day? Me personally, I currently do before bedtime. I have my whole like bedtime routine that I do. I journal a little bit. I do a breath work pattern. And I'm also doing something that's pretty cool called face yoga. I'm getting certified to be a face yoga teacher. And it's kind of interesting because I never heard of it before. I kind of stumbled on it. But basically, it's like giving yourself a facial massage to release tension that you store on the face. I hold a lot of tension in my jaws and my shoulders. So it's a lot of releasing, like all in this area. So yeah, I'm excited to follow along. If you want to know more about that, follow me and I'll have content coming once I'm a certified teacher in a couple of weeks. So yeah, meditating, I don't think you need to do it a bunch of times a day. I think find your routine, but I think if you can tie into using your breath at least at one point during the day, but then pulling it out also when you're feeling really stressful. I'm sorry, when you're feeling really stressed out, you can pull it out as well. Like if you're stressed out during the day, pull out your breath, pull out that meditative practice. Especially nice to hear from a competitive athlete about mental health struggles. I will share this info with coaches that I know. Oh, I love that. I already purchased and downloaded the coach PDF. I love that. I'm glad that you got the coach PDF. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you like it. So I can't see the name. Dwayne, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Just mentioning, I have a mental health playbook for coaches on my website. So my background being an athlete, I work a lot with athletic coaches. So it gives them a toolkit for wellness for themselves and their athletes. So I appreciate your support there. Yeah, Jennifer, I'm super excited about the face yoga routines. Like, definitely certain people probably won't jive with it, but again, you find your self-care jam, but like, oh, I love it. Like, it makes me feel so zen. So I'm super excited to share about it as well. Awesome. Any other questions about resources, tools, anything? These are awesome questions. And like, feel free anytime, reach out to me. Like, if you have a question in 6 months, I will always answer your question. So please do send me an email, message me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Always happy to chat with you all in the future.
Thanks so much, Ivy. I was just gonna say, yeah, please follow Ivy. Clearly, she has a lot of great messages, and you can always connect with her. Thank you for being so open with that, Ivy. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining. This was fantastic. I definitely feel lighter, and I've been hearing about the tapping from like other people and therapists, and it's definitely something I've been wanting to incorporate. So I'm glad I got like a sneak preview of it tonight. Um,
Yay.
but yeah, this was great. Thank you so much. And we will be sending out the recording. So if anyone wants to watch this again, they can. Um, but that's it. I hope everyone has a great rest of your night, or if you're on the West Coast, I guess afternoon. Um, but thank you again. Thank you, Ivy. Thanks everyone for attending. And I hope you feel a little bit better today after this.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Stay in touch and have a great night, day, wherever you're at.